The scene then shifted to a frozen dimly lit hallway on an unspecified floor seconds after, where a loud and painful screams reverberated throughout the entire area. Of course, these unrelenting screams were from none other than Han Fong, who was, at this very moment, struggling desperately to endure the incessant assaults from Jin Qinwen. With his hands and body securely bound, Jin Qinwen kept lashing out, kicking Han Fong in the gut repeatedly. Mr. Jiang was magnanimous enough to let you off once before, but it seems you're nothing but an ungrateful thief. How dare you try to steal our supplies? I'll cripple your other hand too. See if you dare to steal again. Jin Qinwen raised his cold metal rod, intending to follow through with his threat. But fortunately enough for Han Fong, a homeowner barged in at this moment and urgently informed Jin Qinwen that something had happened. So Glass's man is asking them to gather upstairs. Hearing this, Jin Qinwen reluctantly left the scene as Han Fong let out a heavy breath, relieved with the fortunate moment of respite. Han Fong laid there quietly and unmoving, patiently waiting for them to leave the floor. And after what seemed like forever, a sudden green glow started to radiate from his body. Han Fong laid on his back a few seconds after, and finally activated his green glow. Only this time around, it wasn't just his hands, but all over his entire body. After Han Fong healed all his wounds, his next step was to go find the committee's armory. He knew he couldn't delay any longer, and this current moment was probably his best opportunity to do so. Anyway, with the help of his purple glowing power, Han Fong managed to easily break free from his restraints the moment he was fully healed. Flexing his injured arm, Han Fong felt that his fractured arm was completely healed, but the treatment was so exhausting that he almost fainted. This prompted a sudden decision to find some time to study the fixed point of his recovery ability. Otherwise, it would be annoying if it happens every time he tries this recovery process. But at this moment, several sudden footsteps outside drew his attention immediately. And as the door to the apartment slowly creaked open, someone was trashed inside with a loud thud. On the other hand, Han Fong, at that very moment, had the ropes back around his body and was pretending to be unconscious. The two homeowners resumed their conversation and left shortly after. Han Fong suddenly opened his eyes the very moment the door was slammed shut. And as he turned towards the person lying next to him, he was curious to know who it might be. "Brother Li," he murmured in complete shock. That's right, the person lying next to Han Fong was a brutally battered and barely conscious Li Zi. It seems he got the worst of the beating compared to Han Fong. Li Zi woke up shortly after with a handprint on his cheek. It seems that Han Fong had to give Li Zi a heavy slap to wake him up from his unconscious state. But what's even more surprising was that Li Zi actually thanked Han Fong for the slap, stating that the bitch slap successfully did the trick. However, he continued, "If there is a next time, please slap the side that is not swollen. Currently, I have no feeling on the left side of my face." Han Fong, a bit impatient, asked Li Zi what happened on his end when they got separated. Through his muffled groans, Li Zi recounted everything that transpired. Apparently, when Han Fong was dragged into that room, the homeowners in the committee started banging the hallway door open shortly after, and from the looks of it back then, they were seconds away from barging in. I had no choice but to remove the lock on the door of the power distribution room and hide in. And as a result, I found out that there was a big hole inside which seemed to lead to a very strange place. Thinking that those bastards would open the distribution room sooner or later, I crawled down along the wires. I thought it would lead to the parking lot on the underground first floor, but it turned out to be the second underground floor. Even though there was no one there, what I found was so many boxes, and each one was sealed tightly. I opened the boxes in front of me and found that they were all filled with sausages. Each sausage was as thick as my forearm. I was just about to take one out to check when I heard a slight noise behind me, and by the time I reacted, I was already awakened by your slap. But I finally understand why this committee is so arrogant. There are piles of sausages, and each one is this long. Li Zi even began to illustrate with his hands to emphasize the size of the sausages he saw. But Han Fong, a bit skeptical, asked Li Zi if it was really ham sausages he saw. Because if the committee really had so much food, why would they use so much resources such as bombs to try to steal his supplies? Something wasn't adding up. So Han Fong asked Li Zi if he saw any indication on the packages that implied that it was ham sausages. Li Zi scratched the back of his head slightly and replied, a bit embarrassed all of a sudden. "No, there are no words on it, but the shape was exactly the same as a sausage. Now that I think about it, I have never seen one that big." Han Fong had always felt like something was not right, but a sudden realization made him question Li Zi. If it had occurred to him that that room could be Jiang Shueyo's secret warehouse? Li Zi was stunned when he heard this. "What?" he shouted. "Then what do you think those huge sausages are?" Before Han Fong could reply, the two heard the homeowners approaching the room they were in. They were also surprised that Glasses Man was suddenly anxious for them to get rid of Li Zi. Didn't he always want to win him over? A bit petrified, Han Fong and Li Zi stared at each other, totally caught off guard with this sudden news. Apparently, Glasses Man was anxious to silence Li Zi, and Han Fong by extension. So, as the door creak opened seconds after, the two homeowners were puzzled to find it empty. Huh? Where are they? Did we enter the wrong apartment? Hearing this, his companion stepped forward from behind and asked if Li Zi was properly tied up. Of course, the other replied, "Okay, then check under the bed." Unbeknownst to the two, Han Fong and Li Zi, with reddened eyes and a thirst for revenge, slowly emerged from the door behind them. Li Zi immediately launched towards the homeowner closest to them as Han Fong made a mad dash towards the other. A few moments after, they managed to knock the two homeowner unconscious and tied them up. Han Fong stated that since Glasses Man badly wants Li Zi dead, they have to go back to that room and find out what exactly are inside those boxes. This made Li Zi ask what they should do with the boxes when they finally know what's actually inside them. Also, if they are really important supplies, there are dozens of them in there. So how are they going to move them? Don't worry, I have made arrangements. Han Fong reassured Li Zi as the two left the apartment. Let's go and meet up with the evil king's true eye first. Anyway, speaking of the little girl, she suddenly contacted Han Fong through their communication earpiece device. She told Han Fong that a sister of his had arrived at the apartment door, wanting to be let inside. Apparently, Han Fong had sent Nurse Jean to that apartment, but for some reason, he suddenly sensed the little girl's hesitation, so he asked what was wrong. The little girl replied that the lady at the door had come to Han Feng's apartment before and even stole his gun, threatening to kill him, so she wasn't sure if it was okay to let her in. As Han Fong thought over what he just heard, a grim realization immediately dawned on him. Holy shit, this description perfectly fit none other than Li Hyona. Han Fong shouted repeatedly into the communication device, telling the little girl to not open the door under any circumstance. The person at the door was Li Hyona, not the sister who was there to pick her up. There was a few noises at the end and soon the communication ended. Damn it! Han Fong was unsure if the little girl received his message or not, and he couldn't get hold of her again at present. He told Li Zi that Glasses Man's secret warehouse had to wait, because they needed to go check up on the evil king's true eye first. So with that, they quickly left that particular floor to the immediate other. When they slowly opened the door slightly, they found no one in sight in the dimly lit hallway, but they could clearly hear the noises a few distance away. Curious, Li Zi wondered aloud what was going on. Why was it so noisy? On the stairwell, the injured, women and the elderly homeowners were instructed to buy Jin Qinwen to go upstairs from the left, while the others should take their weapons and gather in the basement. Holding a butcher's knife firmly, Jin Qinwen continued in a deep voice. If they were to attack us, all our supplies would be snatched away, and my parents and children would starve to death. We must stop them from coming in at all costs. When Han Fong and Li Zi, hiding nearby, heard what Jin Qinwen just said, they were a bit puzzled. Han Fong whispered to Li Zi, asking if Jin Qinwen was referring to Li Zhenghao and his crew. Li Zi replied that he wasn't sure, but the current situation was working in their favor. They should quickly wear a mask and try to blend in with the crowd. And that's exactly what they did shortly after. Fortunately enough, they were successful in blending in with the crowd with little effort. But at this moment, there was a sudden commotion ahead that drew everyone's attention, including them. In front of Han Fong and Li Zi's shocked gazes, a homeowner was brutally knocked over onto the cold, hard stairwell without any resistance. Gripping on the railing of the stairwell was a member of the committee's archenemy, Zhang Yangyu. He was also holding a long metal pipe, and beside him was Jin Zhongzai. The two confidently stepped forward in an ostentatious fashion, a malice aura radiating from them in waves, and their presence commanding an overwhelming fear that runs shivers down everyone's spine, including Han Fong and Li Zi. Sadly enough, the scene shifted to Li Hyona, who was still standing behind the door of the little girl. Hyona pricked up her ears at the door, but she still couldn't hear any movements inside the apartment. She was sure of this and even began to question if Han Fong really moved there. Unexpectedly, someone called her name that immediately prompted her to look forward. When she did, she was surprised to see Nurse Jean, who obviously questioned what she was doing there. Hyona gave a nervous laugh and replied that she came there to find something to eat. Looking for something to eat? Nurse Jean repeated curiously, then wondered why she brought so many people along. That's right, behind Hyona was a massive crowd of homeowners of various ages.